We were looking at goods market equilibrium in an open economy, where we looked at that the goods market equilibrium condition in an open economy is where demand for domestic goods is equal to domestic output of income. And we talked about how in at the goods market equilibrium. So you may have a balance trade, you may have a trade deficit, you may have a trade surplus, because we talked about how the condition for goods market equilibrium Z is equal to Y is different from the condition for which we have a balance trade, which is exports are equal to imports. So now let's look at graphically representing the goods market equilibrium in a two-panel diagram, where in one panel we have our ZY graph and in the other panel we have our NXY graph. So now in a two-panel diagram, we're going to plot the demand for domestic goods and the 45-degree line in the ZY space. So we're going to plot a demand for domestic goods. And so we're going to basically, the ZZ line is going to, that we talked about, is going to plot the demand for domestic goods as a function of income, and we're going to plot a 45-degree line, Z is equal to Y. And directly below this diagram, where we have our demand for domestic goods in 45-degree line, we will directly below it plot net exports against income in the NXY space, holding constant the real interest rate, foreign income, and real exchange rate. Now, this two-panel diagram, where in the upper panel you plot the ZZ line and the 45-degree line, and in the lower panel where you plot your net export schedule. Now, this two-panel diagram will allow us to analyze simultaneously the determinants of the goods market equilibrium. So it will allow us to simultaneously determine the goods market equilibrium and the trade balance associated with that equilibrium position. Where we know in the upper panel, where we plotted the ZZ line and the 45-degree line, equilibrium output will occur at the intersection of the ZZ schedule and the 45-degree line. And in the lower panel, the net export schedule will allow us to determine the trade balance at this particular level of output. So in the upper panel, we plot our 45-degree line in the ZZ schedule. The intersection gives us the equilibrium output. In the lower panel, the net export schedule allows us to determine the trade balance at that equilibrium level of output. Because like we talked about, at the goods market equilibrium, we can have a trade deficit, trade surplus, or balanced trade. So let's look at. So assume the economy has a balanced trade in goods market equilibrium. So we know in the upper panel, goods market equilibrium is given at the intersection of the ZZ line and the 45-degree line over here by star. And by assumption, we're assuming that we have a balanced trade in goods market equilibrium. So we've drawn the net export schedule in such a way that at Y star, net exports are zero, merely by assumption. It's very much possible that in goods market equilibrium, we have a trade deficit. Again, goods market equilibrium in the upper panel is at intersection of the ZZ line and the 45-degree line. And we plotted now the net export schedule in such a way that at Y star, we have a trade deficit. Again, this is mainly by assumption. Right? So at Y star, we have plotted it in such a way that net exports are less than zero. This is the amount of the trade deficit. It's also very much possible that in the goods market equilibrium, we have a trade surplus. Again, in the upper panel, goods market equilibrium is represented by the intersection of the ZZ line and the 45-degree line. So this gives us Y star. And in the lower panel, we've plotted our net export schedule in such a way that at Y star, net exports are greater than zero. So this is the amount of trade surplus. So graphically, we can represent it in a two-panel diagram. In the upper panel, you plot your ZZ line and 45-degree line. The intersection gives us equilibrium level of output. In the lower panel, you plot your net export schedule to illustrate the trade balance associated with that equilibrium level of output. Now, this could be a trade deficit, a trade surplus, or balanced trade.